That's right. When you don't know what to do, just keep on breathing. Hey, from the City of Angels in Los Angeles, welcome to all my listeners out there in Radio Land. I'm Dave, the Caregiver's Caregiver at caregiverdave.com, along with my lovely co-host, former mayor of a California beach town and best-selling author. We are coming to you live and on demand 24/7 on numerous syndicated radio podcasts, networks, 26 global audio video platforms, including iHeartRadio, iTunes, YouTube, Spreaker, SoundCloud, Vimeo, Stitcher Radio, and many, many more. In fact, we're proud to be voted number one caregiver podcast of the top 50 on Player FM, number two caregiver podcast on FeedSpot out of the top 60, number two on caringvillage.com. And we have an especially exciting show planned for you today. An expert's view on healthy activities for the caregiving team, talking about Alzheimer's, dementia, Parkinson's, and how cooking together can help. What a great idea. Cooking in the kitchen.
Yeah.
Melissa Bernstein has a lifelong passion for healthy cooking and eating for herself, her family, and her friends. She's a graduate of Boston University and brings long-standing commitment to helping others. First as a seasoned occupational therapist, entrepreneur, author, and certified chef, Melissa is devoted to eating healthy and teaching others how to do the same. She's got cookbooks, and we'll hear more about that in a moment. But before we get started, I do want to take this moment to thank my last week's guest, actually a few weeks ago, David Bernstein, who is an award-winning physician and author who's board certified in both internal medicine and geriatrics, and who also happens to be Melissa's husband. Just a reminder, you can watch or listen to that interview and all our interviews on our membership website at caregiverdave.com or any of other 26 global networks that I mentioned earlier. Okay, enough of that. Melissa, so great to have you on.
Wow, thank you for having me. That's quite an intro. You're worldwide. Awesome.
Yes, we're thinking about going to Mars soon, but it hasn't opened up yet. And the moon. Hey, I always like to ask my guests, just who is Melissa Bernstein and why was she placed on this earth?
Oh, it's a really good question. I ask myself that question every day.
That's a good thing that you
do. I do. I am someone who enjoys people, enjoys helping people, enjoys feeding people healthy food. I'm a mother, wife, caregiver, former caregiver now. My mom passed away, but also an artist and a music enthusiast, lots of things. And I am an occupational therapist by trade.
Well, I didn't know what an occupational therapist was until my wife had a stroke. And she started having all these therapies, speech therapy, physical therapy, occupational therapy.
Wonderful.
I said, what's the difference? And they said, oh, it's all about work-related things and, around the home and this and that. And maybe why don't you just tell us, since you're the expert in the professional?
It's so interesting because people have a perception of, what's physical therapy, what's occupational therapy, and they say, oh, well, OT does the top part of the body and PT does the bottom part of the body. I've heard all kinds of funny things.
Oh, that's interesting.
But really, occupational therapy is the occupation of living, meaning that everything you do on daily living skills and every single activity you do during the day is part of your occupation as a person. And it's not occupation work, it's occupation of living. So occupational therapists would assist those who have had a stroke, those who have disabilities from birth or disabilities later in life, caregivers, people who are in need of helping with their daily living skills to help rehabilitate them, to bring them to their prior level of function or to the level of function that they're able to be at that time. So with your wife, for example, I'm sure OT worked on her daily living skills, on her bathroom skills, on her showering, on her eating, and, probably ad nauseum in terms of ensuring that she was able to be as independent as she possibly could be in her daily living skills and regain her sense of who she is as a person.
And how to get up when you fall down. That's an important
How
thing.
to get up when you fall down. Absolutely. Absolutely.
That famous iconic commercial, help, I've fallen and I can't get up.
Yeah.
And I've
Yes.
even said that a couple of times because now wait a minute, I can get up. Well, then why can't I? You just got to roll over and get on all
Yeah.
fours, and then so I
Absolutely.
guess I'm officially a senior citizen if I need a special way to get up. Well, let's talk about the Power of Five Test Kitchen Cookbook for Caregivers. How did that come about?
It's
First of all, I want to say
I mean,
you seem pretty thin from what I can see of your torso, because my
yeah.
wife is a gourmet cook and she still cooks. And everyone wants to know why I don't weigh 400 pounds, because she's,
Yeah.
always cooking up a storm. So why don't you
Yeah.
weigh 400 pounds?
Because I am not an overeater. I guess that's what I eat healthy. I exercise to kind of counterbalance what I eat. I'm not a big sweets eater. I'm a vegan. That's the other thing. I've been vegetarian since I was 21, and then vegan in the last 7 years. David and I are both vegans. So, so it's all about portion control. It's all about what you're putting in the temple of your body. And it's about what else you do in your environment to help maintain your health, which is, exercising and sleeping 7 to 8 hours a night, and reducing your stress, and increasing your socialization and your commitment to people and your connections with people. I mean, those are the things that I think keep me at the weight I've weighed for probably 20 years. I don't know, except for when I was pregnant.
Let me interrupt again, since we're talking about it. I always like to ask vegans, what's the best source of protein? Where are you getting your protein from?
Because, I get that all the time.
We're Debbie and I are going to be in Acapulco in a couple of days, and we're eating very healthy. Everything there is sugar-free and gluten-free. We're not vegan over there, but protein is so important, especially elderly people don't get enough protein.
You are absolutely correct.
Most seniors have a problem gaining weight instead of losing weight. And where do vegans get all their good source of protein? Because I heard the best source is red meat, but you guys don't like red meat.
No. So, great question. I get it all the time, and I've written blogs about it. So we get our protein from tofu, from plant-based things like, did you know mushrooms have 9 grams of protein in them? Do you know vegetables actually have protein in them?
No.
Legumes have a lot of protein. Quinoa has protein. So we get it from our fruits and vegetables. However, I will do a little caveat here. In the last year, Dr. B and I have really done a lot of research on protein, exactly to your point about as you get older, you need more protein in your body. And we feel, and we have kind of analyzed what we've been eating for the last 7 years, and really feel like we have neglected some of the things that you can get from fish or eggs. And so we have actually added those 2 things to our diet. So we're most of the time vegans, I guess.
What do you call yourself if you're a vegan and you eat fish and dairy? There's a word for it, isn't there?
Well, eggs are really not dairy. So it's a pescatarian if you eat fish. So you're a pescatarian. If you're a vegetarian and add fish, that's called a pescatarian. Oh. So we are really, I would say, most of the time vegans is what I've been calling us. So, but we do occasionally have fish. It's not an everyday thing, and it's not an everyday egg thing. We
Are there
have
fish
added that to our diet.
With mercury and all that?
Yes, the more dense fishes you should stay away from, like swordfish is a very dense fish and does possibly have some mercury in it. Certainly bottom feeder kinds of fish and shellfish are really not healthy for you. But things like but scallops are good for you, and also salmon is a good fish. And there's some white fishes that right now it's escape me, but there's some white fishes that are very high in protein.
Orange roughy, like for example,
mahi, not possibly. I guess you could just research and find the ones that have the most
Debbie's listening intently because she had mercury poisoning
I
at
had
one
mercury
time.
poisoning.
Oh,
Yeah,
no.
so I'm
She's
really
avoiding
careful
fish.
about fish. Yeah, yeah.
What kind of fish do you avoid?
I don't eat fish.
You don't eat fish at all?
Occasionally I will crave salmon, and I always try to get line caught salmon. And I tend, if I am going to eat fish, and which is rare, maybe once a month at most, I try to go for the ones that have a short life, because I guess they don't. My understanding is they don't have the opportunity to get as much salmon. And I would never eat fish in somewhere like Puerto Vallarta where they're in a port and it's so contaminated.
Yes.
So I'm very, very careful about where but small fish, apparently I understand are healthier, but you're the expert. I'm not on that.
I'm not really an expert on fish. I mean, I cooked it, but because I haven't eaten fish in a long time, I'm kind of just relearning about fish and the benefits of fish, in terms of some of the vitamins and the oils that you get from fish that are beneficial, and the protein, of course.
I am curious about, sorry, I don't want to interrupt you there.
No, what I was going to say is the problem with, if you're trying to keep your weight down as a vegan, a lot of vegans might be overweight because there's a lot of things that are don't have plants, don't have meat in them. And so if you eat something, if you try to make a perfect protein and you eat the legumes, they have very high carbohydrates. So if you're trying to get a lot of protein, you end up increasing your carbohydrate level, which is not easy on the waistline if you have a lot of carbohydrates. For most people, the balance between carbohydrates and protein and fruits and vegetables to balance your protein amount for a vegan, it has a higher amount of carbohydrates. So if you're trying to lose weight or maintain weight, it's harder to do that. And that's what Dr. B has found out with his weight. I don't have a problem with that, but if you eat, the more carbohydrates you eat, even if they're healthy carbohydrates, it does add more calories and it does add carbohydrates, which are processed differently. So,
well, the keto diet, I don't know what your opinion is about that, or the Atkins, which is a low carb. Keto is practically zero carb. Protein doesn't have a lot of carbs, do they?
No. Mm-mm.
So
they do not.
Which proteins are you talking about?
I'm talking about proteins that come from like quinoa, because that has 9 grams of protein, but it also has carbohydrates.
Got it.
I'm talking about legumes that have protein, but then also have high carbohydrates.
The fruits have a lot of carbs.
Fruits have a lot of carbs as well, even though they're healthier carbs. It still turns into a carbohydrate. So the Mediterranean diet, you brought up diets, really is what we recommend to our listeners and to our readers, because 5 years in a row, the Mediterranean diet has been voted number one in many, many categories in healthy eating. Healthy for your heart, healthy for your brain, healthy for weight. So really the Mediterranean lifestyle is really what we recommend. And so we're getting more towards the Mediterranean lifestyle just with adding fish and eggs to our diet. So Dr. Bernstein and I both have worked with several organizations that have memory care units. And so we have been doing a lot of training over the years with caregivers and the staff at these facilities and families to help with daily living skills, training, etc. And when I became a vegan chef and really kind of focused on cooking and cookbooks, etc., I reached out to them and said, how would you feel about me helping caregivers feel comfortable bringing their care recipients into the kitchen for a purposeful activity? As an occupational therapy, it's all about purpose with OT and purposeful activities. And I thought, wouldn't this be great if we could help them feel comfortable doing something different in their routine? Because as you know, caregivers are in this routine all day long of taking care of somebody, depending on, it varies based on the level of the care recipient, but they need a break too. And this is a positive, meaningful way to bring someone into the kitchen and both enjoy this activity together. So in doing the live presentation, I actually turned my Power of 5 test kitchen into a studio, and I brought my friend who has Parkinson's disease into the kitchen for some purposeful cooking.
Wow.
So we did 4 segments of cooking 4 different things. And in the front matter and the back matter, I talked to the caregivers about how to do this and what are the safety measures and what is the meaning of doing this and how it can be beneficial to their loved ones or care recipients to stop the repetition, if you will, and do something different. And not that they have to do it every day, or not that they have to cook something that's extravagant. It can be extremely simple. And the benefits of the communication that happens, the past reminiscence that happens when you cook. You know, they may have been a cook with their grandparents, the care recipient, and to be able to talk about food and about the benefits of food, and it might spark some memories that they had cooking with their grandparents or their parents when they were younger. So there's so many benefits, not only the cooking something that's healthy for your brain, your body, and your heart, but also facilitating communication and facilitating even music that could stimulate memories of cooking with your grandmother or your grandfather or your brother or sister or whomever. So, you know, taking the time to do a purposeful activity in the kitchen like cooking has just so many benefits for both the caregiver, who also doesn't take care of themselves because they're working so hard with the care recipient, so they need to take a break and do something fun.
So have you been on any morning shows doing this?
I have not been.
So how do people see this?
They can see it on our YouTube channel.
Okay, you're doing
YouTube on our
videos.
YouTube channel. We had on our YouTube channel, which is Power 5 Life, the number 5life.com. And I've done them for, you know, people have hired me to do specific presentations to them, and they, you know, we incorporate the video into a live presentation. So that's kind of another way we're doing it.
That's a great idea.
If you have any ideas for me to do this, I'm all ears, because it's a process to get in front of people and to do something like this. As you know, you both know.
As I know. So, Debbie, have any questions?
I do, actually. One of the things that happens to me is from time to time I get anemic. Every couple of years or so, I get a blood test and my red blood count's a little low. And I can take iron fine, but the thing that really seems to make the difference is to eat red meat about once a week. And so I'm wondering if there is an effective vegan or a vegetarian alternative to that.
Yeah, vegans are prone to anemia, aren't they?
They can be. They can be.
What do they do about it?
I take iron. I take an iron supplement myself because I do have a tendency to have low iron, but I've had it years ago. It's not something that's happened because I'm a vegan or a vegetarian. It just, you know, some people just have iron deficiencies. And if it doesn't affect your, your energy level, it may not be a big deal. But for me, I started taking iron way back, and it seems to have helped me bring my level up. I'm not, things like very leafy vegetables, very dark green leafy vegetables like kale. I know kale sometimes gets a bad rap, but
I love kale.
I do too.
My turtles love kale too.
Exactly.
Oh, I love turtles.
Me too. You love turtles, not to eat, I hope. But
I don't know. Just as pets. They're fascinating.
Dark leafy vegetables, beets that have a very dark color. Those also are high in iron. But mostly the dark leafy vegetables and beets are my two go-to things for gaining iron. I could probably research and find a few other things, but those two things come to mind.
It's interesting because those are both things that I really like, to the point of almost craving them. So that's interesting to know. That's good to know. I'll eat more of what I like.
Eat more of what you like. Spinach is another one. Another great dark green vegetable that's, Popeye said it, and it's true because that also has a ton of iron in it.
Now, I didn't know that there's foods that will benefit someone with dementia. What is that?
So, Debbie, were you a caregiver?
Yeah.
As well? You all, okay.
Former.
So you were former caregivers, all of you. So, as you know, a lot of times with diets with dementia and Alzheimer's patients, they crave sugar, a lot of them. And that has to do
That
with
can't be good.
no, that is not a good thing. So I get this question a lot about the kinds of foods. So fresh fruits and vegetables. The fruit part, if made into popsicles, if made into things that are sweet, can defer that sweetness that they crave for, like sugar.
So natural sugar and fruit is okay for them?
Natural sugar and fruit is okay, yes. But it's the density of, eating like sugar, like candy, like pure sugar cane is not good for them at all. But focusing on fresh fruits and vegetables, and as I mentioned that, fiber, legumes, whole grains, quinoas, all of those kinds of whole foods, non-processed foods, eating as clean as possible are most favorable for dementia patients. So, no boxed things, no foods that have additives and preservatives in them. Those are not good. Those are not good for anybody, but especially for dementia and Alzheimer's patients.
Now, Melissa, there's lots of cookbooks out there on the market. Why is yours
There are.
Everybody's got a cookbook.
This is, no one has a cookbook like this.
Well, tell us
why.
This
book is specifically for caregivers. And the reason it's specifically for caregivers, to be honest, it's really not about the recipes. I have to be really honest. The recipes are basic recipes that anyone can do. There's nothing magical about the recipe. But what is magical about the book is that there are guides for caregivers to understand the safety issues of bringing someone into the kitchen. For example, it's the occupation of living. It's their occupation. So there's how to do cueing with someone, how to do compassionate cueing. So that encourages them to do.
Explain that.
Just like saying something to, like when let's just say we're making a fruit salad and keeping it simple, a simple recipe, like even getting the pre-cut fruit. If there's someone that's really not able to cut at this point, buying pre-cut fruit. And they can throw it in the bowl. They can stir it. And if they're not doing it properly, you could just say to them, put a hand over hand and say, this is the way we stir, in a very calm way. So it's compassionate cueing on completing the task. So that's one of them. And then some of the other things are, I included a skills checklist, which I designed, which helps the caregiver understand what level of assistance that the care recipient can give during a cooking activity. And that would kind of gauge them as what kind of recipe they should choose to do, including the care recipient in the process. So if there's something that they like, their likes and dislikes are really important. And that also is part of the survey, is what do they like and what do they dislike? If they don't like a certain food, then certainly you don't want to make that, because you won't have a successful outcome of sitting and having a meal with them, or sitting and having a snack with them, or whatever you make. It also goes through your hand, your hand strength, your balance, your coordination, your vision, your hearing. Are they able to stand? What's their standing tolerance? What's their sitting tolerance? So it's just, it's a 2-page check list. And then they can actually see, do they wear glasses? What's their auditory processing like? Are they able to communicate? And these are basic questions that the caregiver can answer. This is not a full-on assessment done by an occupational therapist or a physical therapist or any other neurologist, etc. It's a basic interest, just a simple tool for them to use. And I suggest that they do that first before they bring someone to the kitchen, so they can gauge that. Then, have a discussion with the care recipient on what kind of food they might like to make, and choose together what they might want to do. They might want to make little pizzas. They might want to make quesadillas. They may want to make something very simple that can be handled pretty easily, that has, a few ingredients and a few steps. Keep that in mind, that a complicated recipe with a lot of steps is just not something that you would want to do to start off with. So that will help. I also have some examples of some adaptive equipment that could be used in the kitchen to foster independence, such as large handled spoons or weighted spoons. So I have a whole little section in the back here that has some examples of some adaptive tools that could be used in the kitchen. And there's a wonderful cutting board that has some corners on it, and it has some prongs sticking up so that you could like actually put a potato on and it would stabilize it so they're able to cut. So there's lots of, an OT, we're all about adaptive equipment because we want to get that.
Yeah, we've got almost all of them.
You got
that sounds wonderful. I love
My
that.
wife loves to cook.
Well, we have so many adaptive devices to use, and that's the beauty of being able to really do anything that you did before.
Well, you
use adaptive equipment. Big deal.
You can take the OT out of the kitchen, but you can't take the kitchen out of the OT.
You cannot. That's very true. So your wife is doing well in the kitchen?
Oh, yeah.
Stroke?
She wanted to cook immediately getting home, and her mother wouldn't let her. She, oh, no. And I was the opposite. I would say, no. Here, let me reach that for you. No, she can get it. And the occupational therapist said that I am training someone to be independent, and my mother-in-law is training someone to be an invalid. And so I always remind my wife when I push it too hard. Yeah.
Really a good point, because one of the things that I always talk about in caregiver training and any training that I've done is that where we want to foster independence, not dependence. And I can't tell you how many facilities I've been in when these aides want to rush them through, and they don't even stop. I mean, my mom, may she rest in peace, just was in a facility, assisted living facility, but towards the end, she needed really around the clock care. And before that time, I would talk with them about let her do things, let her continue to do things so she has a self-worth. So she feels like she's still doing stuff, and she really wanted to. That was the good thing. She really wanted to continue to get up and brush her teeth. And they didn't even set her up with a bathing bucket to even, I would just say, just set her up. She can wash her face if you just just taking the time. And I think that's a very good point, is that you really have to foster independence, even if it's a tiny little bit, even if it's just a little bit that they can do. That's meaningful to them because that gives them some control, because they've lost a lot of control, and you want to give them as much control as possible so they, it helps their dignity.
That's right. Time is getting away from us. In the last few minutes, what would you like to talk about that we haven't discussed yet?
Well, I do want to talk just briefly about my second cookbook, which is called The Power of Five Test Kitchen. It is a big book, and it is called Your Guide to Healthy Cooking and Eating, which is for everybody.
So we don't need reading glasses to read that. It's in large print.
Well, it's not that big a print. Not that big a print, but you don't need, no. It's a nice size cookbook. How
many recipes?
Oh gosh, we have
Hundreds,
101 recipes. I did have more than that, but I had to cut it back. My husband said, you're going to be paying people to take your cookbook if you have this many recipes. So I have enough for a third cookbook. But the cool thing about it is that this cookbook, and I say it's for every lifestyle. So because even though the recipes are plant-based, I have a Melissa's modifications at the end of every recipe. And that is where you can make choices based on your lifestyle. So if there's a recipe you want to add grilled fish or grilled chicken or even beef, whatever you want to do, there are options. So there's all kinds of alternatives. So each recipe has multiple things. And then there's just lots of great information about going into the kitchen, what are herbs and spices. And there's even a section for dogs. All my furry grandchildren parents wanted me to do a section on healthy dog treats. So I did. These are all my grandchildren, furry grandchildren. I did a section on why it's important to feed all members of your family healthy, and had some recipes in the back. So I'm very proud of it. It's available on Amazon, of course, and on our, not on our website, but it's available on Amazon and Ingram Spark and I'm very proud of it, and I'm very proud of what we're doing. Dr. Bernstein and I are doing together on helping people be healthier and have longevity in their life, eating healthy and having wellness. And that's really what we're all about.
You two were made for each other.
We were, I think.
Well, I can't believe how fast our time has gone today. Thank you so much for coming on the show. You've covered a lot. And how can listeners reach you? You have a website, you have email.
I do. I have all that. It's powerofthe5life.com. Melissa at the Power of 5 Life. You can reach me on Instagram is Power of 5 Test Kitchen. You can also sign up on our website to get recipes right to your mailbox. And our blogs are available. Dr. B and I write a lot of blogs on healthy living and longevity, as well as healthy eating.
Very good. Have you two authored a book together?
We have. We made a journal. We designed a journal to go with the Power of 5 book. Good. And so it is a way for people to document their successes in their 5 S's.
Good for you. Well, thanks again for coming on the show, and we really appreciate it. It was very informative, very, very educational, and very entertaining. 3 necessary ingredients for a good guest.
Thanks very much. Have a wonderful time in Acapulco. I want to hear all about it.
We will keep you in touch.
Please
and for everybody else, my number 1 newly released book, Secrets from the Hammock, Uncommon Wisdom for Uncommon Times and Spreading Wisdom All Over the World, available wherever the books are sold, and also on my free membership website, caregiverdave.com. And if you do join my caregiver group, Facebook, 34,000 Caregivers, you'll learn all about my new Acapulco Villa Caregiver Wellness Retreat and Vacation. We're having one in a couple of days and another one probably in January. Just trying to keep as many of you caregivers alive, because 30% of you are not making it. You're dying before your loved ones do. And if it's Alzheimer's, it's 40%. So just click the like or follow button on whatever platform you're watching or listening to this interview on. Helps us reach even more caregivers by improving Google's search engine algorithms. And Debbie, how can caregivers get a hold of you if they want to find out what you do?
DebbiePeterson.com, just my name.com, and that will take you to my podcast and all my books. And there you go.
All right. Well, so until next week, same time, same channel. May God richly bless everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Mm-hmm. Bye-bye.
Bye, Melissa. Say hi to David.
Hi, Debbie. I will. Thanks, Deb. Bye, Dave.
We are a community of caregivers that understands and supports you wherever you are in your journey. We are a place to connect with other caregivers, but more importantly, a place to get practical, actionable help. There are lots of ways for you to get support. First of all, you can download our welcome pack. This will get you started on your Thrive journey. Next, you can ask and get answers to your questions by posting them here in our private Facebook groups. You can also get live online support by attending one of our live weekly Connect webinars. You can get practical, actionable advice by listening to our weekly podcast. You can hear and read other stories about other caregivers' experiences. Plus, add your own in our weekly Share Your Story forum, posted every Tuesday in the Facebook group. You can access essential resources and download practical Thrive Solutions packs, all of which are geared to help you thrive as a caregiver. You get lifetime access to all of our resources. Again, we're here to support you and to help you thrive and to enjoy your life as a caregiver. And remember, this is a place to get hope, not just cope.
Sometimes it feels like the sun will never rise, like the birds will never sing.